Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Monday, December 18th. I think this 16th. I think this video is probably going to be published tomorrow. I don't know if I have enough in it today. Um, I don't know. Going to the dentist tomorrow, whole thing. But I want to start off by talking about what people call black pilled. You know, I've talked about this in the past. You've been indoctrinated to the happily ever after illusion that doesn't exist. We all have. When you watch a movie that doesn't end with happily ever after, you feel cheated by the movie, right? I mean, the movies from a very young age, the idea that people go through some sort of crisis and come out the other end, and the villain dies and the hero is exalted, there's some kind of feeling of being cheated, right? You know, to the extent that the hero and the hero's woman ride off into the sunset, and now the woman hero and the man and her man or whatever, or whatever it is now. It's always this sort of idea of happily ever after, right? The movies end on a positive note. Evil has been vanquished and good has triumphed, right? And I don't know how many comments I've seen over the years where people will say God has triumphed in terms of Christians. Jesus will win, and Jesus will, the world will be the way it should be, and all these things, right? God always wins. Like, this is a battle between God and human beings that are kind of evil, which is silly, because God can kill you with the mere thought. God could wipe out this whole earth and universe with a mere thought. And so how the hell are you going to battle God? Like, there's no battling God. You can have a little bit of a being naughty and do your own thing until it catches up to you. Like, that's how it works. You can go and work against God and within yourself, deny God or be mad at God or, do things to hurt God by hurting other people or trying to wreck the game or wreck the system or come up with a system that goes against the divine wills and laws. And eventually it just collapses and goes some other direction. Like, it just has to. There's no, can't survive without God. It's like trying to survive without oxygen or with food, but even more subtle. Like, you need divinity, you need your soul, you need divine energy to exist at all. And so when you deny that as a system, as a person, you can, it's still working for you. Like, the divinity within you is still keeping you alive, your soul. But inevitably, the destruction sets in. They say the wheels of time for God move slowly, whatever that saying is. But they're there. And so there's no God against people. Like, there's some kind of, evil against good, in terms of any religion, but specifically Christianity, because of the book of Revelations. Like, I heard this when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like it. That's very good. Like what happens, the trumpet blowing. Let me see if I can find the passage here. So this is from the book of Revelations, an overview, AI overview. In the book of Revelation, the seven trumpets are a series of divine judgments that are announced by angels and represent escalating warnings of God's wrath. The seven trumpets are sounded by seven angels after breaking of the seventh seal. The trumpets are described in the Revelation 8:6, 9, 19. Now, David Koresh was somebody who was an expert on the seals and breaking of these seals, right? And David Koresh thought he was the agent to break the seventh seal. That was a whole part of his thing there, right? It was a kind of an apocalyptic cult thing he started there. But, it's interesting, too. He had some spiritual energy. And I want to talk about that in a bit, too, as well. We're going to get into Stephen A. Smith, with somebody who has gone on Sean Hannity. I guess they're friends. And he has said some things. He's a Democrat who's saying things that are, this is about January 6th. We'll get into that. And I got a bunch of other things to get to. Of course, the drone thing keeps on going. First trumpet, a plague of fire, hail and blood that burns up a fourth of the trees and all the grass. The second trumpet, a huge burning mountain thrown into the sea, turning a third of the sea to blood, killing a third of the ocean life, and sinking a third of the ships. A third trumpet, a burning star, falls from heaven and poisons fresh water and rivers, killing many. Fourth trumpet, the light of the sun, the moon, and star is dimmed by a third. Fifth trumpet, a usual type of locust, emerges and stings humans for 5 months, stinging locusts. Sixth trump, 4 angels are released to kill a third of the remaining population. They're really big into thirds, right? So this is some AI interpretation of the apocalypse. Let me read this. This is from the KJV, King James Version of the Bible. Starts off with Revelation 8. And when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in the heavens in space of half an hour. Space in heavens, right? But I thought there was firmament, right? And I saw the seventh angels was stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came from the prayers of the saints ascended up before God and the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there was voices and thunder and lightning and earthquake. And the 7 angels, which were the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed a hail and fire mingled with blood, and there was cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees were burnt up, and all grass green was burnt up, all green grass. And the second angel sounded, and it was a great mountain burning with fire, was cast into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood. The third part of the creatures which were the sea had life, died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from the heaven, burning as if it was a lamp, and it fell upon the third of the rivers and upon the fountains of water. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many died of waters because they were made bitter. Again, remember where I started this thing off with, that there are Christians who think God's going to save our system, and God wins in the end, right? And this is all going to, God wins in the end, right? Well, this is what your book says, right? This is how it ends. This is in terms of the biblical prophecies. And no one knows where this came from. People don't know who wrote the book of Revelation. Like, I looked into it. People say a different John, not the John of the, his disciple John, but whatever. It just showed up in the Bible at some point, right? And this is going on. Part 12, whatever it is, 8:12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard the angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of earth, by the reasons of the other voices of the trumpets of the 3 angels, which were yet to sound. I'm on Bible Hub, and there are a lot of ads. Just saying. There's a lot of ads on Bible Hub. It's a good Bible gateway I'm on. Bible Hub is different, I think. Bible Hub is better. Revelation 9. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from the heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And then came out of the smoke locust upon earth, and upon them was given power, as scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God on their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torments was a torment of scorpion, which when he striketh a man. In those in those days shall man seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locust were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. These were kind of creepy locusts. And they had hair as hair of women, and their teeth were teeth of lions. And they had breastplates as were breastplates of iron, and the sound of wings was at the sound of chariots of the many horses riding to battle. And they had tails like scorpions, and they stings in their tails, and the power was to hurt men 5 months. And they got stung, it hurt for you 5 months. And then had a king over them, which is an angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Adadon, but in Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Oh, what one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more after. A lot of woes. The sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice in the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound to the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horse in the vision, and they sat on, having breastplates of fire, and jacinth and brimstone. Like jacinth is like one of the pillars of the, I think it's the same word for the Freemasons. And the heads of the horses were heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three were the third part of men killed by fire, and by smoke, and by brimstone. Fucking brimstone, man. Which used out of their mouths. For the power in their mouth and their tails were like serpents, and their heads were with them, they do not hurt. And the rest of them, which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, and they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone, of wood, or which neither can see nor hear nor walk, neither repented by their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. They only kind of repented, I guess. And then Revelation 10, and I saw another angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow, and his head was upon him, and the face was where the sun was, and his feet as pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set the right foot upon the sea, and the left foot around the earth, on the earth. And he cried with a loud voice, as the lion roared. And when he cried, seven hundreds uttered their voices. 7 thunders uttered their voices. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write. I heard a voice from heaven saying up to me, seal up those which the 7 thunders utter, and write them not. And the rich which I stand upon and see upon the earth lifted up to the heaven, and aware of him that liveth for ever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are therein, and the earth and the things that therein, and the sea that the things are therein. First they should be in time no longer. But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he began to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, and hath declared to his servants and prophets. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go take the little book, which is open to the hand of the angel, which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And when I went unto the angel, and said unto him, Give me that little book. And he said unto me, Take it, and eat it up, and I shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in the mouth sweet as honey. And when I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey, as soon as it was eaten, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before the many prophets and nations and tongues and kings. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood up, rise, and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. The altar is where sacrifices take place. But the court which is without the temple leave out, the measure is not, for it is given up to the Gentiles, and the holy city shall then be tread under foot 40 and 2 months. 40 and 2 months. And I shall be given power unto the two witnesses. All right, so like you go on for a very long time because it keeps on going on. But there was part of it, as I remember, where people, when the trumpets blew, and again, I didn't read that here, so I'm not sure if that this is just common idea that the good people would just go up to heaven, and everyone else was fucked, right? The good people who were Christians would go up to heaven. I just saw a movie that was a Christian movie about this, right? And then this would be a hell on earth for, I don't know, for eternity. Like all the good people, everyone is going to go to heaven is going to go to heaven, and everyone else is left to this hellish earth where they're, punished by locusts and these other, tortures, right? But there's no God winning and the system being better. If you're a Christian, that's your end. That's how it ends for you. That's the ending of it. And so, like, what are you talking about? Like, read your book, right? It's in the book that you think is the greatest book ever, which it isn't. It's a remedial book, especially the Old Testament, but it isn't that great a book, right? And I want to get into just a little bit about that at the end of this thing. But the first part is this, that, in every religion, there is some kind of ending like this. And you could call it gloomy, you could call it doomy, you could say it's gloom and doom. But it's just the way things end. Because death is death, right? It doesn't matter if you die with millions of other people or billions of other people. Let's say more than I think it's going to be 7, 8, so there'll be like 1 billion people left. So 6 billion people die, or whatever it is, 6 billion and some change, right? So there might be under 1 billion people. Of course, the Georgia Guidestones, which I don't think are anything. But let's say it's 500,000 people, or 500 million, or whatever it is, right? There's drastic population reduction, is what I'm saying, which is inevitable. We're at peak population. Like, the Earth can't really sustain this many people. And people say we can, and it's like, no, we can't. There shouldn't be this many people. And when there is this many people, there's peak population. There's, when you can't, and again, overpopulation happens in small areas, not in, the whole globe. It happens in small concentrations. And you see what city populations have brought to people, right? That there is insanity in just all of it, the deviance that sets in. Like, that's what happens in city life. When you live in more rural circumstances and there's more space between you and your neighbors and you're connected to nature, it's a completely different life for a human being. When you have people upon people living in these hives, a colony in massive cities and, this concentration of people, it's what sets in, right? It's just what is. Like, it breeds a kind of humanity that is what we see now, right? And then these cities fall apart. It's happened over and over again. You can find lost civilizations or ancient ruins in all kinds of different places, right? Like, I have some pictures of them. One of my, I think the UFO giant thing, I'll put that compilation in here. But it's, it's something that just exists, right? That there is these civilizations that, sometimes are 30 feet under the ground, like Earth, and they excavate and find a massive civilization. They found one in India, the Indus civilization, I think it's called, that was from 30,000 years ago, something like that, right? And of course, there's ones in the ocean, like what people consider Atlantis. What happens is when there's an ice age, which is a massive fucking fuck you to everybody, is that so much of the land mass, like all of Canada and most of North America and like all of Europe and the upper part of all these areas, right, is now glacial. It's like one big iceberg, one big glacier. And you can just walk across the top of the earth, all around the earth. And it's just frozen, like frozen tundra. And it doesn't thaw. There's no, there's no summer. There's no, It's just a massive winter. And so it pulls all this ocean, and all this ocean freezes, which drastically decreases the levels of the ocean. And so the ocean tides then, the ocean, like land masses, like, Florida expands, and there's a massive land bridge, a whole continent emerges from Florida all the way down to South America. And it's warm enough there by the equator where people all have to go there and live. But, overall, the temperature has dropped because of the massive ice ages, right? And then there's these civilizations that rise up on land masses that used to be under the ocean. And then the ice age ends, and this water, just massive flood. This is what, is referred to in the Bible with Noah and these things. There's these massive floods because of it. Like, all these civilizations then just go under the water because there's shit like this happens all the time. And so civilizations collapse is what I'm saying. And you can find the ruins everywhere. And so they all end the same, right? They end in collapse, massive die-off, and something happens with the earth, volcanic activity, or, ice age, or, war, or whatever it is, right? We know that this happens. And it usually sets in when people are weak and pathetic, and they're low functioning like we are now, and worthless, and the system just collapses, right? And you study the collapse of a family. You study the collapse of a business. I was asking about MySpace, and people are like, well, MySpace doesn't exist anymore, right? And so there was a movie called Funny People, which isn't really that funny. It was an Adam Sandler movie. And he was a comedian, kind of depressed comedian. And he was paid to go to MySpace. And the big joke was fuck Facebook, right? And but they also paid the singer James Taylor to go. And James Taylor performed a few songs. And MySpace was really sad. It was like, when MySpace was being overtaken by Facebook. And James Taylor said, fuck Facebook. And that was the big joke, right? So, Adam Sandler was like, he had hired this guy to write him jokes. And, that whole thing happened. And so, but now MySpace is gone. And you see this with these businesses that rise up quickly, these platforms, and they don't even really exist other than on the internet. And then they become ghost towns on the internet, and then they disappear, right? And then this has even happened to Facebook now, whatever happened, YouTube, these other places, where their business grows too big and they can't sustain the level of shrinkage to their business, and they're being minimized, and they just disappear. They can't reinvent themselves as, a depressed, collapsing platform, which is losing and hemorrhaging viewers and participants. And we see this happen over and over again on the internet, where things become huge and then they're like collapse. They reach their maximum potential. And you see this, this kind of procedure in any kind of situation. You have it in your own life. There's a moment in your life, it might be a brief moment, you're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die, right? Like, it could be a car crash happened quickly, somebody pulls out a gun, and you hear it, like, there's a bullet. You're like, holy shit, I'm going to die, right? It could be instantaneous like that, or it could be over a small period of time where you get cancer and whatever. You get older. But at some point, you realize, oh, I'm dying. Like, this is going to end with me dying. Because some part of you believes you're going to live forever. It's in everybody. There's this, death is just something that's going to happen, in a future that, I'm never going to get to, right? And so there's just this delusion about death. And, it can be with people in your family. It could be someone that you love and you can't imagine being without them. But death is there for us all. That's how it ends. It's not evil. It's not bad. It's not gloomy. It's not any of those things. It's just what is. It's something we all have to face. As you get older, it becomes easier to see. Like, your death becomes, okay, yeah, this is happening. Your friends and family start dying. The people that are older than you, they start getting, whatever they're getting, and they start fighting, the inevitable decline of their bodily functions. Their body's just not functioning the same way anymore. They spend more and more time dealing with that kind of stuff, right? And, like, if you were a person who went to your high school reunion, there's less and less people. You talk to your, that guy died. Oh, you hear about that guy, he died, right? And then that gets really bad as you get into your 70s and 80s, and you're like, how's whatchamacallit? Oh, they're dead. It's like that. More and more people, and you realize, oh, my generation is dying. Like I'm one of the last survivors of my generation. And then you're on your way out, right? Your physical body isn't functioning, and you're looking death in the face, right? Things end, and it's God's will, and it's really a blessing in ways that people can't understand. But for ourselves, for our egos and for our, it's the end of something that, we feel like things aren't left, things are left undone, or, there's more we could have accomplished or whatever it is, right? And so that's something we're all facing. Like death, regardless if the civilization went on forever, is for everybody. You're going to die, I'm going to die. It's all, there's going to be death. It's the end of something, and people deal with ending things and destruction in their own ways. It's not evil. It's not devil's work. It's part of the godly system. And we have souls that go on to do something else. Our souls aren't meant for this forever. This is not a forever thing. We have a purpose for our life. Most people don't find that purpose, and this opportunity is wasted. And that's the real tragedy, a wasted opportunity, right? Because when I said in my videos, there's hope in the destruction. There's hope in the connection to God. But people who can't understand that or can't see themselves doing that or don't believe in it, well, then there's no hope at all, right? Because they just can't do it. It doesn't make any sense to them. They're not capable of such things. And those people would say, well, it's gloomy because all they do is continue to live their life until it's taken from them. And then it's complete panic of the nothingness that they believe is waiting for them, right? The people who deep down don't believe in God, even a lot of religious people don't deep down believe in God and are just materially oriented. And they can't connect with the divinity within them or even contemplate such a thing. And for those people, they don't belong here, certainly, because they don't have the opportunity to do that, right? So this isn't gloomy or it isn't black-pilled. Somebody wrote a comment. I don't know if I said that in the beginning of this video. And I just saw it on my phone, and the person said they were getting more and more black-pilled, and they feel bummed about it. But there's nothing bummed about it, because either it's going to happen or it's not. Our civilization is going to collapse. Either it's happening now, and it's inevitable, or it's not. But anybody giving you false hope, and you creating false hope for yourself, whether it's a systemic collapse or it's your own personal death, it's something you have to deal with. It's something that you have to reconcile. At some point, you have to accept it and prepare for it. And that's what I do here, prepare for the inevitable. We're all going to die. That's part of it. So how are you going to die? And what's, what does it mean? Like, what does your life mean that you're going to die? Like, there's some, measuring stick. There's some, moment of your accomplishments and your mistakes and all these things that you're facing as your life ends, and like making the best for a future version of yourself, and finding what your soul created your life for in the first place. Like, most people don't find their soul's purpose or their soul's path or have any relationship with their soul at all. But if you have a soul, why aren't you connecting with your soul? Why do I have to hard sell this? I think about it. I talk about this all the time. And, if you're a Christian, you don't really have a relationship with your soul unless you go beyond the Christian, whatever it is, modality. Every person who's a Christian or has any religion has their own personal Jesus. They have their own personal Buddha. They have their own personal Krishna or whatever religion they do, Muhammad, or whatever it is. Like, they have their own, spirit guides and New Age people that tell them what they want to hear, right? Their version of Jesus isn't the real version of Jesus, right? That song, Your Own Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode. It's a great idea because that's how it is. People each create, this is what Jesus is to me. Well, it doesn't matter what Jesus is to you. What is Jesus, right? Because someone left a comment also last night that they get their faith and hope in Jesus. Yeah, if you connect directly to Jesus and Jesus is talking to you in a real way, and that's, still not as good as it could be, but that would be great. Like, very few Christians are able to do that, right? Years and years ago, I did this sort of New Age seminar, and this woman was gifted, but she wasn't a heart-based person. She wasn't a God-loving person, but she had some like psychic abilities, but was struggling. You could see in her own personal life. And you can connect to Jesus and any saint or any soul or any demon or anybody. Like, I just watched that crappy second Beetlejuice. I'm not going to comment on it here. But it's like you can connect with souls, even people, living souls. You can connect with them. You can connect on a soul level, on an etheric level. It's not hard. People are scared of it, and don't know how to do it, and then there's no real instruction for it. But how many times have you dreamed about your dead parents or somebody dead in your life, and you connect with them in a dream, and they tell you something? Like how people have these experiences all the time, right? We have our etheric life and our dream life, and where our soul is connecting on an energetic plane of existence, etheric plane, etheric region, an energetic world that our soul exists in, but we can't connect to on our physical level. This stuff with channeling, which I talk about quite frequently, and all these other things, right? And so if you could connect with Jesus or a saint or any of these divine beings, like there's people on earth whose souls have achieved great things in the world of spirituality, or just even a little bit ahead of you. They have to be one rung ahead of you on the ladder. And when you're around those people, if you find a person who's living like that, when you're around these people, I had this experience with Master Chargy, an elevated soul, and you can find these saintly people. Sometimes they just are a little bit, they have a little bit going on. But if they're just even a little bit ahead of you on the spiritual journey, and you can connect with their achievements, it feels good to be around them, right? The good people in your life, the people who are loving and spiritual, they when you're around them, you feel better, like you're a better person. You have less deviant thoughts. You make less mistakes, right? I mean, sometimes the opposite can, you can, get pissed at them and be jealous of them and turn on them, and they can, but that's your own, like, evil, whatever, egotistical ego stuff acting out, right? But in general, the people who are spiritual in your life, and you have some, you've probably met somebody, know people like this, and they raise your level of existence. And then you have people in your life who are fun, exciting. Maybe they're sort of decadent, and they're partiers, or they are whatever they are. They're alcoholics, and you're around them, and they bring you down. Criminals, people will pull you down, and you make bad decisions, and you do bad things when you're with them. And when you're with the higher developed souls, you do good things. And then when you can connect to a etheric soul like Jesus or one of these, other saints, you're going to do better. But it's still very limited, because there's more for you to do. Like there's that you just being around and associated with a higher soul, whether it's a person living or dead, is a great thing. I'm not diminishing or demeaning that, but it has the limitations to whatever that person's achieved, whatever that soul's achieved. And it's your religion that's told you false shit about Jesus, that he is the only Son of God and all this stuff, which isn't true. And so it is whatever it is. Like, connecting with Jesus is a good thing. But there's still more, right? There's still more you can do. And then there's your own, personal evolution. And how does that help with that? Like, how does that help with your soul's journey and to move forward? And because this idea of heaven and hell and these things, it's not a real thing. I mean, not that they don't exist, but you're not going to heaven because of just accepting Jesus. That's just not enough. And again, there's plenty of places that'll tell you the opposite, or, reaffirm the indoctrination you got from your Bible. But it is whatever it is, right? If you're doing something positive, then great. Like, I'm not, I think it's a great thing when people are doing something which connects to a higher, like, source, or connect to, spiritual energy on a higher level. At least you're seeing something that's something to look up to. The difference between what I do and what religions teach is it isn't enough to worship a higher soul. You have to become them. You have to, they're an example of what you can do, what each one of us is responsible to do. And it sucks. It's not easy. It's not anybody who's done any kind of spiritual work and does self-improvement and things like this knows that it isn't easy. It's a tough thing. And it just gets tougher, right? It sucks on your material life level. You're sacrificing your material life for something that's, spiritual reward, and that's what it is. And, nobody wants to do that. And so, I talk about it, and people can do what they do, right? But I know why people don't like it. I get it because I struggle with it myself. Everybody does. Your ego doesn't want to do it, and so that's. But there's this false promise that you've been given, this hopium that you've been given is just that, a false promise, because it isn't as easy as the Christian religion says it is, because they don't care about your soul and where it goes. They don't care about truth. They care about control and profit and all the things that a demonic cult-like religion, a cult religion. All these religions are cults to one extent or another, right? And so they just care about getting your money and and your influence over you and these things. And if that's all you can do, it's fine. But there's plenty of places that are there for that, right? But this is for higher developed souls that are able to connect with, I don't say higher, but people who are willing. It's really about being willing. Whatever, you've lived enough lives, you've done enough, you've had enough experience that you realize that your material life isn't, it's great, enjoy it, but there's something more. And that you want to connect to God, even on just a putting your toe in the water type of a way. Putting your toe in the water, the ocean of the divine ocean, is better than just circling the fire or walking on the beach and being separate from it. Right? You're at least getting your your feet wet a little bit, and so you're dabbling in it, and that's a step in the right direction. And that's what this channel's for. Is that there needs to be more effort to connect to the divinity within you, and all that implies in a real level, like not some bullshit fake thing that you're lying to yourself, but a real system and a real commitment to that system to evolve and connect to something higher than yourself, and relinquish your ego's stranglehold over your decision making and your choices, and allow God to come in and help you process and do what you need to do, right? And in that, a real afterlife, like an evolutionary afterlife, not some bullshit promise thing that you got from a religion, but a real afterlife exists where you're working towards something, a future where you're moving forward and connecting to, something beyond your limited ego and your mental, your earthly confines of your three-dimensional personality and all these things that are here. Beyond, beyond Earth, beyond material life, beyond the physical universe. And so in that, there is a, progress. There is you're connecting with the true reason you've come down here, and you're figuring out a way to move forward and not backwards. And the majority of people on planet Earth are moving backwards, right? And so, how that plays out in terms of the destruction, well, then you're looking at it in all the things that we see as truthers, like everything that you see about the material world right now, like everything that's going on in the material world. You don't think that this is fucked, right? Like all the stuff that I report on and other truthers report on or the news reports on, there's individual people that are, or systems that are doing good things, and there's some positive energy there. But the majority of it is very superficial, and there's huge consequences and, burning up resources and just overall misery and, going in the right direction. And all you need to know is this. I mean, this is the barometer. This is the measuring stick, right? Are people getting better or worse? Are people becoming better people now than they were before, in terms of generations? Or are they getting worse, right? Are they getting stupider? Are they getting more pathetic? Are they getting weaker? And all the demonic ideas that are in there now with the gender stuff and all that stuff, it's not just liberal crap, because the lack of true spirituality was brought this on because of crappy religion that, dominates people's, blocks them from evolving spiritually is as much of a problem as anything else, right? And so, remedial ideas about good and bad and evil and these things, and, good people and bad people and us and them, and, the division, and, if they have to, we're doing fine, but they have to improve themselves. No emphasis on your own personal evolution, no emphasis on that you have to change. It's everyone else has to change, like this immature way of people thinking that I'm perfect, everyone else has to change, right? This kind of thing. Like that's the downfall of the civilization, more entitlement, and we're just getting weaker and weaker. And so think about all the great things that we have. Like these are the things you don't want to lose. your lifestyle that you can't imagine not having these things. Like what it'd be like if you didn't have electricity or you didn't have grocery stores or you didn't have, I mean, it's unimaginable to most people. And so they think about it being a horror movie. But the system is bad. We all know it's bad. We documented all the truth community. We document the evils of this system and the evils of other people or the evils of the collective evils over and over again. And but then we want to save it. Like what the fuck are you talking about? You're looking right into the abyss and you're realizing the system's not worth saving. But then you're going to call people who are black-pilled gloomy, right? And miserable. Well, it's not. Like you're just accepting what needs to happen. It's not. Nobody wants it because we're not. It's an unknown. And some people will thrive, but most of us will. We just can't do it. We can't make the adjustment, especially as you get older. It's just too hard. But you can prepare yourself for the future, accepting what is inevitable now. And as you exit this world, you're preparing yourself to be better in a future existence and not fall into the pitfalls that that we're all dragged into by a demonic system that took us in the wrong direction. And the biggest problem, like the greatest asset of our system, is free time. And so when you're farming and homesteading, you're living in a tribe, you don't have the luxury of doing the things, the free time that we have here. There's, people sitting by the campfire and people sleeping, which is always a part of it. But mostly you work for, for your survival. Like everything is like working to gather food and gather water and fire and heat and these things. I mean, it's just not just surviving the elements, the winter and these, conditions, keeping your body temperature good. And this is why people build civilizations so that they didn't have to deal with that shit all the time, right? The constant, imagine being in a teepee. It makes you stronger, but you're in the teepee in the middle of winter with this 8-foot snowstorm and you're sitting in there. You can't go outside. The snow's coming in, right? You're just trying to, you're huddled up, just trying to, get through the next whatever month or 2 months or whatever food you have stored or whatever it might be, right? You're, in these situations, like these horses that get buried in 8 foot of snowdrifts and they blow holes in the snow and stick their faces up and they're breathing through the snow and they're, we have fish in our pond and frogs. I'm like, Jesus Christ, these things are freezing. We saw these turtles in our ponds that are just like under the ice, right? We're watching these turtles swim, under the ice and they're like, it just kind of froze over and they were like, I don't know if they're trapped in there. I don't know if they get out, whatever. But they don't have a burrow. They have to go. This is the idea of hibernation, right? How to survive a winter. These animals, these bears and these other things that, they go find a cozy place to sleep it off and then wait till spring. It's just, the harsh reality and then the heat that kills you. There's just all these things, these conditions that people have to deal with, starvation and, deprivation, times of deprivation and all these, traumas when it's like they're just going through a hard period of time and just, waiting for things to get better. And so, like, of course we built cities and climate control and faucets and water. I mean, it's great. We don't appreciate it, like I was talking about my other video, but it's wonderful. Like once you farm, you realize how much the system does for you, like how much the system provides for you. And the biggest thing it provides is free time. And you look at what people choose to do in their free time, it's almost never about self-improvement. It's never about connecting to God unless they find out they have cancer and then all of a sudden, please God, save me. I don't want to die. This kind of bullshit. All of a sudden you're praying to God because something's beyond your control and your inevitable death or death of a loved one and you're praying to God to prevent something that, can't be prevented. And so, this is realizing and accepting the true nature of our existence here, which is temporary and filled with ups and downs and things that we can't control. Pleasure and pain and suffering and all these things. Good, pleasure, happiness and suffering and all the wonderful things that are there for us to experience and all the bad things and all these things. It's a mix of all these things. We can't prevent, just have pleasure and, put the pain away and, don't experience the pain by numbing yourself out with medication, right? All these things that people do. And then the bank of pain grows because if you have pleasure, you have to have pain. Everything comes in a binary form except for God. God is the one singular, the one, it's only singular because God is everything. And so there can't be two everythings, right? And so God is the essence behind all creation. And then everything else comes in binary form, pleasure, pain, happiness, sorrow, right, good and evil, all these things. Light and darkness, they're all together. And you have one, you have the other. This is something that Master Chargy, the third master of the Sajmark system, used to say every time he came to America. And that there's this bank of pain, and when you push away the bank of pain, you numb the bank of pain, you have pain that you're getting from your pleasure, like your hangover. And you push it away. You find ways not to experience it. And then it drops down on you all at once, or you're pushing it into your next existence. The pain and suffering from that you didn't allow yourself to experience in this existence is there for you in your next life, in your next experience, right? And so this is, understanding there's no utopia, because you're not coming down here to be happy. Your soul didn't create your body for perpetual happiness. Happiness in itself isn't a goal. And so my wife sent me this thing here. And so this person wrote, you know how children are more sensitive to their surroundings, they're more in tune with nature and the world around them, more so than adults. Well, that's not the case. It's just that adults die. And adults put shields on them and they lose their abilities, right? So you're a kid, you haven't yet developed a defense mechanism to stop you from, connecting with your etheric self, right? But anyways, let me get through this thing here. And she says, well, this is a conversation I had with my daughter this morning. Out of nowhere, my daughter says 2025 is going to be scary. What do you mean, baby doll? Oh, that's probably baby doll. The world is breaking, Mom. I'm serious. Dark red balls. It will slam into the earth. I can't stop thinking about it. So at first I think she was watched a video or heard something from someone else, but definitely not me and my husband. We don't talk like that. And I constantly tell her that the planet is fine. And I asked her, where did you hear that from? She tells me, nobody, it's just been on my mind for a while now. I can't stop thinking about it. I feel it coming. Mom, do we have somewhere to go in 2025? Underground, we've never discussed living underground ever. Do we have somewhere underground to go in 2025? I told her that everything's going to be fine, not to worry, but she was adamant that 2025 is going to be scary, a year something will be raining down upon us from the sky. Have your kids ever told you something specific like this? And then she drew this picture, which I really can't see all that well. And then my wife said somewhere in this thread, somebody wrote that they've had these dreams that are very similar to that, right? But, in the Whispers of a Brighter World, which I'll read to you at the end of this year, the ones of the prophecies, I've done it before, but these will just be a separate video. I'll announce what the year of 2025 is going to be. And, the idea that nuclear power, nuclear energy is going to bring the downfall of this civilization. So that's there. And, I don't know if it's this particular year or coming or whatever, but it's upon us, right? It feels like it's upon us, and it should be upon us because the civilization sucks, right? And it's not, if it's true, then you're not negative. Like if it's not true and you're just somebody who's all the apocalypse is tomorrow, right? You're somebody who's, like a goth, like doom and gloom death person and always thinking about your death and never living, right? Oh, we're all going to die, so I'm not even going to live. And, life is just, no, enjoy your life and then, process and do what you have to do. But don't, live with the Sajmark teaching is that a bird needs two wings to fly. And it's a unique teaching because you think about all these religions and these spiritual organizations and these clergy and the people who are, monks and sannyasis in India, these people who renounce material life and go live in temples or live out in the forest and they meditate and they don't have material lives and they neglect their, you have the material life. You should have a normal material life with a family and a job and, you participate in society, but also you need a spiritual wing. You have to devote some time to it. And that's the beauty of the Sajmark system, the Gratefulness meditation that we do here, some of us, my other YouTube channel, is that you live your life, but you also have some hours of the day. It's like 110 minutes a day that you dedicate to meditation and cleaning and prayer and things like this, right? Not a lot. And so a small fraction of your time, and of course your thoughts and thinking about God and connecting to God throughout the day as well while you do your activities. It's wonderful, this process that exists in the Sizemore system through the transmission, the cleaning, and these other things that happen. But, having both things, having a material life and a spiritual life, not neglecting one for the other, right? Not, being out of balance. But if the civilization is collapsing, and I don't know the exact time frame, I don't know if this is the year, but if it is, then we have to deal with it, right? Like you just do, because it's happening. And so preparing for it and accepting it as being something that's coming from a divine plan. And that as scary or as unpleasant as it is, it's something that we're aware of. And like, I don't care. I'm not selling you something. I don't give a shit what you do. Like, I don't care. I mean, I really don't. Like, I do this out of a sense of duty. That is something that I have information to share. But, it's not everyone's going to do it. Like, not everyone's, if there's going to be massive population reduction, and there is, there's people who just can't connect to God, or they're not capable of being a part of a future where the world is focused on spirituality and, people's inner connection to the divinity within them. Those people can't be here, right? If those people are just obstructions to the collective good and the collective evolution of this planet, and the spiritual connection of people evolving to a higher level of consciousness, right? If they can't do it, you can't do it. You're not going to make the cut. That's not my problem. It's not. You have your choices to make. So in terms of what any information I have about this and my understanding of it, whether it's right or wrong, it's just my understanding. Like, I don't have any, exact timetable, and I, can't tell you what you need to do personally, but just that there is something coming which we can all feel. And so how to prepare for it, and connecting to the divinity within you is job one. Like, I know that, again, I don't recommend things, but I know that to be the case, right? Like, it's for you to figure out. It's, for each person, because some people aren't capable. They're just not. And even capable of understanding that idea. And so they just have to sit there and, hope for something that isn't going to happen, because that's what's comforting to them, right? Like, that's all they can do is just pretend that there's some, make America great again kind of situation out there, and drink the hopium, smoke the hopium, because they can't, there's no alternative for them. Like, the inevitable end of their system, their inevitable death, are too much for them to contemplate or even process or prepare for. And so it's sad for them, or whatever it is. I don't know. Fuck it. It's not me. It's them, right? It's each person's got their own, accountable to their own soul and their own decisions and lives, and the lives that they live and the lives that we live. Each person has to answer for themselves, right? I mean, that's there's some accountability here, divine accountability. But in terms of the information that I have and my understanding of it, I'll be relieved if if this thing is put off. Like, if it's, the civilization's going to collapse. It's just a matter of when. But if it happens, and how it happens, and it starts happening, or whatever it is, then it's, it behooves people to understand that you don't have a plan B right now. And plan B starts with when the system that we have now has disconnected you from divinity. And the religions are the worst part of that, because the religions have deceived you and, have been a middleman between you and the divinity within you, right? And if this little girl is able to connect with this idea without any information, and there's people who are and can feel it coming, and, why can't everybody? Like, why wouldn't it be better for everybody to feel it coming? And what to do with it, right? Well, then all of a sudden, how much of your life becomes meaningless and a waste of time? You've had all this free time to prepare for something like this and connect to something better and to make yourself into a better person. That's the advantage of free time, that you can use it for your own evolution, but people just have used it to indulge and dive into material things that they don't really care about. Like, how much of your life that you think is important now, if you get a diagnosis of like a terminal illness for you, a loved one, and all of a sudden everything seems like, oh my God, none of this stuff matters. What the fuck have I been doing with my life? What have I been doing with my time? None of this shit matters. All these petty little things I've been worried about, all these little pleasures that I, don't really enjoy, all the, time I waste doing this or that, the other thing, right? It becomes just like, well, I've wasted my life. And like most people should feel that way. You've wasted your life, right? And so there's, whatever time you have left, there's a time to, for redemption and do something real and do something serious. Like, these people who are on the news and they just, like they talk about the pharmaceutical companies. Like I saw one person, I think it was Marsha Wallace or whatever that is, the Wallace lady on MSNBC. She was talking about RFK Jr. She's talking about Big Pharma. The same way that guy Hotez, in my last video, that Dr. Peter Hotez was, this is the end all. Like this is some great, pharmaceuticals companies and the corporations and these things are, and our government is just the pinnacle. I mean, holy shit, what are you talking about, right? Are you real? Like, are you really talking about that? It's the pinnacle. This is the best, right? This is the highest. Of course it isn't. It's degraded. Pharmaceutical is an evil. The pharmaceutical business is a for-profit of other people's physical suffering, and contributing and causing their suffering, and then profiting off of it, right? This whole medical model, all the things that are out there. This is just all evil shit people are doing. And if you're going to die and you're not enjoying the money you're making from other people's suffering, you're not even having a good time with it, then what the fuck is your life all about, right? I mean, just in general. There's a good song I'm going to show you somebody sent to me. But anyways, this idea of that it's either going to happen or it's not. Truth is truth. And if it's going to happen, then there's no, oh, you're being negative or you're being, whatever, you're black-pilled. It's just accepting what is. And if our system is collapsing like it appears that it is, and that there's going to be drastic changes to everything, then you might consider the people that already have dealt with this and have processed it and have, are farther along understanding and dealing with this, right? And, listening to them instead of thinking that you're you're inventing the wheel or whatever. Because there is, there's knowledge here and there's people who've lived through this before in previous existences, so it feels familiar to them and they can do it better than other people. Just saying. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so YouTube recommended this to me yesterday. Today is Monday, I believe the 15th or the 16th, I'm not sure. And, Stephen A. Smith, I just wanted to see because of that headline. He has a podcast now, and he's trying to breach into politics and all these other things. And I'm going to talk about what I dislike about him. But he's somebody who has a relationship. He worked with Fox Sports and Fox News, and he's friends with Sean Hannity. And he was one of the first kind of people in that realm. We had done this years before to talk about Joe Biden being senile and old, right? And, some of these other things. But he had this to say, which, for Trumpers, it's a good thing to hear from a guy who claims to be a Democrat.
News comes amidst a bombshell report from the Justice Department that revealed the FBI had at least 26 confidential informants on the ground when the Capitol was stormed on January 6, 2021.
Okay, so this is going to be, he called it a bombshell report. And this is going to be a validation for all these dopey Trumpers out there that want to believe that this Trump is their guy and this is rigged system against him and this is all deep state stuff, right? But the question is, why did they release this report now, right? Because what you see in the government, and this is, it is interesting, and there's something here, and he's going to talk about a little bit more here, and then he's going to say some other things, which I'll comment on in a couple different ways. But first of all, why now? Because they've known about this since the beginning. Like, they knew this almost immediately. Do you think they lost 24 FBI agents, right? Let me play the rest of it, then we'll come back to this.
The report says most of the informants engaged in illegal activity during the chaos. The Justice Department says only 3 of its 26 informants present had been instructed to observe potential domestic terrorist suspects on the day of the riot.
So only 3 of them, and
the rest of the 23 appear to have gone to the Capitol on their own accord. Upon hearing...
Okay, so 23 people, FBI agents just showed up volunteering to be a part of the January 6th thing, which makes no sense, right? Why would, it's your day off, and you hear Trump give his speech, and these people are going up to the Capitol, and somehow you rush out of your house and you join the group and you become an agent provocateur, and you volunteering your time. What they all call each other up? Hey Bob, guess what? Something big's going on with Trump in the Capitol. Let's go in there and be provocateurs. Like, that's bullshit. Like, 23 FBI agents showed up just to do that, with no planning, no, they just winged it. Like, I mean, from the time that Trump gave that speech, right? So the riot was happening, the gathering that was happening up there. All these people are coming up to Capitol Hill. Some point in time they decide to go up there and then be a part of the January 6th thing, right? It makes zero sense whatsoever without anybody signing off on it. These are guys who, I mean, doing something like that, that's something where you go to jail for, right? That's not just something where you're, you know. So why would they do that? Why would they risk not only their careers, but also doing prison time? And they might go to jail. Like, this might be something where they're held up before, I mean, certainly be fired over. 23 of them just, let's go up there and let's be a part of this thing. And we don't have a plan. We haven't been, authorized to do anything. We're not, we're just going to go up there and wing it, right? Like, it's silly, right? And why release the report now? And as much as you think you're winning something, this is the same thing that happened to you before, because there was all these Black Lives Matter and whatever that group was called, protests, Antifa, right? There was all those things that happened, and they were burning buildings, and there was a couple kids out there who were part of the protests, and they made a video of how there was just like pallets of bricks in the middle of the city for no reason. There's no building construction. They're just put out there so that you would throw bricks at buildings, right? They were encouraging. The powers that be had dropped bricks off in the middle of these places where the protests were going on. And we saw some of these guys in Portland who were living in a tent camp, and they were all agent provocateurs, right? And they were also probably FBI agents or intelligence community operatives or whatever, right? That were pushing for these protests. And then they hold defund the police thing that happened, all that, which was a debacle. And when right-wing people saw these guys getting away with that, they thought, oh, we can just go protest. Like, this is just what you can do. And there was talk about them being invited up to the Capitol. And then all of a sudden they were like the worst people in the world, insurgents, insurrectionists. And Stephen A. Smith gets into that, right? How it was just all bullshit. But now he's saying it, like he's coming to the party way late. The problem with Stephen A. Smith, let me say this first. So Kyrie Irving did something like great and brave, where he decided he wasn't going to get the boop. Okay, so I made this video yesterday. Today's Tuesday, December 17th. And there was a video entitled, let me find it here, on my Podcast Now channel, entitled, Wow, ESPN shills Stephen A. Smith amidst money pressure from Disney shaped his attacks on Kyrie Irving. So this was a video that was out in October 2021. So I went back and took some clips, which you'll see in this video. And I said, you know what, this video, I'm going to make it public because I'm not doing anything on my Apocalypse Now channel. So I made the video public. And I don't know, 8 hours, 5 hours later, 6 hours, I don't know. Some hours later, last night before I went to bed, I got an email that they pulled the video. And I'm like, wow, they're still doing that, right? And so, over the whole thing here. And it was like 11 seconds into the video, they found something. And they pulled it for medical misinformation. And, it's been so long and so many things have changed. And, the tides have changed, but they're still doing that because of the being shills for Pfizer. So now I have to go back through this video. I have to remove the parts of the video where I comment. I'm just going to show the clips of Stephen A. Smith and, things that he said. And then I'll put new commentary in there. I had some commentary from the old video. But now I got to make sure that I clean it up here. And, I'm going to be booping everything too as well. The boop. So, which, but I have to go do that now and then I can upload this video. But it's just so bizarre because I thought they were kind of getting a little bit more, they were being more flexible about those rules. But it was a video that was up for a while, and they started doing medical misinformation, so I made everything private. But there wasn't really anything in there than me just covering this, this thing that happened with whatever. But anyways, I'm going to go back to edit this stuff out, and then I'll upload this video in probably about an hour or so. But let's get back to the regular video here. And he stared down his team and the league and the media, and he just wouldn't budge. And, he was demonized and all these things, right? And Stephen A. Smith went in on him. But Stephen A. Smith first said that he had issues with the boop itself. Like, he was concerned about it. And I documented this on my other channel. I have the video somewhere. And he was concerned about it. And he didn't want to lose his $8 million a year from Disney, ESPN Disney, that made it mandatory. Remember, there's a woman who wanted to get pregnant. She didn't want to have the because she thought it'd be bad for her health, and they fired her. And Stephen A. Smith stood up to, didn't stand up to anyone. But he did reference his suspicion of it. And of course, the big thing with Tuskegee, because people who are African American, I mean, all of us, because it's, humans on humans, but this was specifically the military took these black people and gave them syphilis and then didn't treat them and used them like lab rats, right? Which, isn't the only time that's been done, because it's being done all the fucking time, whether we're aware of it or not. We're lab rats for the internet, like for having cell phones. Like, what happens when you carry a cell phone around with you in your pocket these are all experiments that they either know ahead of time what's going to happen or they're collecting data. They're collecting data on us all the time. We're all in a part of a bigger, larger experiment. But this was specifically giving people a disease by race and then allowing them to suffer and die. And so this is, when the black people talk about Tuskegee, or when they think about it, it's, a lack of trust in the medical community, right? And Stephen A. Smith referenced this, of course, Kyrie Irving did. I don't talk about race and things like that. I'm more of talking about soul, like your soul and what your soul is, right? Which is beyond your race or gender or any of these other things. Whatever your person, your country, your nationality, your soul is your soul. And it's etheric and it's beyond, your limitations of your physical body. But here in this context, if the what was being given to people for depopulation purposes, right? And RFK Jr. said there were studies that said that black people were more likely to suffer from the side effects of the what, right? And that it was targeted towards them, or COVID itself. And so it's clearly a population that they want to diminish. There's a genocide. We know this because women of color are five times more likely to get an abortion. So that's genocide. Like, that's a way to create genocide, right? To target a group of people and make them less likely to have kids, right? 5 times more likely. And so when the boop was first coming out, the bloop was first coming out, my wife sent me this thing from Twitter. I think it was her, or somebody did. And it was an African-American reporter I've never heard of. She was very hyper-liberal. And she couldn't wait to get the bloop. And she went into, like, Harlem. She was wealthy. She was a contributor to, like, MSNBC or CNN or one of those things, right? She was a person who, had money. But she went into Harlem into some sort of FEMA setup where she got the bloop. And she was dead, like, that week. And so, there should be extra suspicion for people in the African-American community because of these past events and because of what's going on currently. And I've said this before, by creating this idea that there's been, you're owed something and you're entitled to something, it's hurt the African-American community because, like, this idea of reparations, they're not going to pay reparations, right? They don't, that's just something to create chaos. Whatever support they have for that idea, they're not going to pay it. And so it makes you less likely to try to succeed or work hard when you feel like you've been screwed over, right? It undermines your, some of your fight to participate in society. And then you become a group or population that they want to diminish. Like, you're no longer valid economically. You have immigrants coming in. And so, like, there's been this movement, clear movement to depopulate everybody and then specific groups. And the African American group is a group that you have to look at is that they're targeting in so many different ways. And they believe they're being targeted. And Stephen A. Smith knows about this. And Kyrie Irving stood up to it. And Stephen A. Smith said he didn't want to give his $8 million a year up, so he got the bloop, and he demonized Kyrie Irving in such a way that Kyrie Irving's dad got involved, and they almost were fighting, like almost physically fighting. Like there was just, animosity there. And so him coming out and trying to be a truther now, fuck that, right? Because it's just, he stabbed not only, Kyrie Irving in the back, but basically, a population that is supporting him, his demographic that he is, clearly wants to be a part of, the black community. And he's, now trying to talk truth to power. But that's only after, like, his big moment could have been standing up to Disney and ESPN and saying this thing, at least not demonizing Kyrie Irving. Even if you took it yourself, you could have supported Kyrie Irving for standing up for what he believed. And that's all he did. And he was right. If he was wrong, he was wrong, but it was still what he believed. Isn't that what you want athletes to do, to take a stand? But the way that they went after him was despicable. And so Stephen A. Smith is just, you can't think of him as being, part of the solution, because in his big moment, he failed. But going back to this January 6th thing, right? And so the story now looks like bullshit. And like I said, just because they come out and they're saying this now, the Justice Department, and you're thinking that they're endorsing your reality, they can turn on you again like they always do. They just deny events that are happening on the ground. They deny things. And we don't know if this, Trump is a part of this. Like, he's complicit. Trump walked right into this trap. The best thing you could say about Trump, he's either doing it on purpose and he sold out all these people, his followers, because he was instructed to do so. His handlers say, this is what you got to do, go up and give this speech. And he was play acting. That's probably the worst of two things. Or he's too dumb or too dense to know what's going on, and they worked him and they conned him into doing this. He walked right into it, right? No one's gotten worked as bad as Trump. As much as he says he's a art of the deal guy, the way they worked him on COVID and the way they worked him in the post-election, it was brutal, like embarrassing. Like he just totally shit himself, right? It was like an embarrassment. Like he should have been done politically, but the Hopium people forgave him, and now they're back on it, right? They're believing that Trump is their savior. So all the QBs have come back in roaring fashion. They had their moments of doubt when he sold them out, and then he turned on them, and he disavowed all those people, and now he's going to pardon them. Now this information is coming out, all this stuff to validate him, all these things. It's all congruent with this deep state narrative, but it's all bullshit. It's just like, stop being a right winger. Like, you're getting worked all the time and you don't know it. And this doesn't change anything. And just because Trump is being given a green light now, doesn't mean that they're giving him a green light to make America great again. They're giving him enough rope to hang himself and the people with him. And like all this other stuff that's happening, we'll get more into the drones thing, and the World War III is upon us. I got an interesting clip from a Trump general or somebody, I don't know who he is, but he's an anti-Iran guy. I'll show you that in a moment. Like, it's going on. Things are real. Like, it's happening. It's devolving into a, end of world's kind of, apocalyptic type of situation, which is something that we've been seeing developing, and now it's just accelerated even more. So after he talked about the January 6th things, Stephen A. Smith gets into the Democratic Party giving money, Kamala Harris giving money to Oprah, $2.5 million or whatever, and then the money they gave to Al Sharpton's group. And he gets into the whole, the lack of trustworthiness in the Democratic Party, and he gets into all these things, because he's a Democrat and the rest of these things. Stephen A. Smith is good at saying things that will draw attention to him. He's just good at it, right? Controversial things, hot takes like they do in sports. And he, provides basically a big part of what he does and all these people do is creates a whole secondary industry in the sports world to add another layer of distraction to analyze and decimate and disseminate every little play that happens. I just turned the TV on this morning, and I saw both of these games. I saw like parts of these games. I saw the Cincinnati Bengals play the Tennessee Titans in a game where there were so many mistakes on both sides. Like so many, there was like the Cincinnati Bengals came out and immediately were had a dead ball penalty where they went off sides for the first play of the game. And 2 plays later, Joe Burrow throws an interception. But the Tennessee Titans went on to have like five out of 6 drives end up in turnovers. Their quarterback does a lot of dumb shit, kept on throwing interceptions until they benched him. But then another guy comes in, the guy Mason, Rudolph Mason, whatever his name is, who was the guy who got into it with the dude from the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett took off his helmet and hit the guy in the head with it. Took the guy's helmet off and hit him in the head with it, and later said the guy said the N-word. And that guy comes in and he fumbles, and a guy for Cincinnati picks up the ball and makes a great play and runs it back for a touchdown, only to drop the ball, switching hands at the goal line and kicking it through and giving the ball back to the other team, so they don't even get a turnover, never mind the touchdown that he was just about to get. And he tries to get the ball. He runs to pick up the ball, even though the play's over and he's fucked it up. And you can see the look on his face. He knew he fucked it, right? And it was pretty bad. But then the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor had a nice run, and right before the goal line, he dropped the ball. And it would have basically, Indianapolis, it's wrecked their season. They had a good chance. They're beating the Denver Broncos, and they're fighting them for a playoff spot, a wild card spot. And just the debacle that sports is. And they'll talk about that shit for weeks. I mean, depending on what other things happen. And, the plays happen, people fuck up, they make bad decisions, instantaneous decisions. And these guys will pick it apart for years, right? And, it's just what happens now on social media. People talking about nothing, right? Like people dissecting things after the time that it was there. But let me run my compilation here. So this is my big lie compilation. This was a talking point that was obviously a talking point because so many people said the same thing. And Biden himself ends up talking about something that I wrote about in my book, The Choice, that the way these guys operate is they say the lies over and over again until they become truth. And so never forget that can happen at any time. Because no matter what it looks like Trump is, being given this green light and, they're waving him through and he's just going to come in and he's going to get all his people and they're going to fucking do justice and turn everything upside down. They're going to clean the thing out of the deep state. That ain't fucking going to happen. There's zero chance. If there's less than zero, it would be less than zero. There's a negative. That's never going to happen. It can't happen. It's not backed by divinity. The system itself is corrupt. All the things I said in the beginning. There's no fixing the system. It's a backwards demonic system with a backwards demonic usury-based economic, economy, and a religion that's disconnects people from God, and a system that's completely broken down on every level. And it wasn't better before. It was just on a path to where it is now, right? The time that we grew up was leading to this time now. It was a progression. It's all part. It wasn't like, some point the liberals took over. That was the inevitable outcome of the debacle that was the conservative-run system that was against God and evil in its own military-industrial complex, causing pain and suffering all over the world. And so none of these things are going to happen. It's just false hope that they're creating here for every period of time. It's a time to take advantage of it as best as we can. Again, I don't recommend anything, but for me personally, prepare for what's next. And what's next is the beginning of the end of the system. I mean, either that's true or it's not, like I said in the earlier part of this video. Okay, so here's the big lie compilation. And, here it is. And I'll continue on with the stuff Stephen A. Smith said in my old video on my Apocalypse Now channel.
Is a lie. But this lie, his big lie.
The big lie.
His own big lie.
The big lie.
I doubt any of them are stupid enough to believe the big lie.
Of the big lie. And
by the big lie, deranged by the big lie.
Continue to perpetuate the big lie.
That big lie and the big lie, because the big lie.
The big lie is the big lie is
The big lie.
this whole big lie election.
There is a new big lie making the rounds. And big lies, a big lie. These big liars
Is the big lie.
The big lie is just that, a big lie.
President Trump told a big lie, one of the biggest ever told. This big lie is perpetrate and act upon the big lie that Donald Trump perpetrated the big lie. In the face of provable lies. Lies that right now are
continuing, big lie.
Trump's lies. Conspiracy theorists would rather travel across the country in service of the big lie.
Extraordinarily dangerous to spread the big lie.
Pose the big lie.
Standing against the big lie. Yeah, I said it.
We know that the big lie was cooked up.
You got the big lie.
About the function of the big lie.
Have been banned from sites like Facebook and Twitter, but his interviews with right-wing media where he continues to repeat the big lie.
They're part of the big lie. Goebbels and the great lie. You keep repeating the lie, repeating the lie. Big lie. People will know it's one thing for one man, one woman, to repeat the lie over and over and over again.
Okay, so this is a video. I just made it public again. I'm at Pocket Laughs Now channel. This is stuff I covered on my Pocket Laughs Now channel. And so it was private, and I've made it, public again. And the video's title is, in part, Wow, ESPN shill Stephen A. Smith admits money pressure from Disney shaped his attitude, I assume, to Kyrie Irving. I'm not sure how it cuts off there. But let's play a little clip here.
The Brooklyn Nets need to get rid of Kyrie Irving.
Early in the video, I went back and looked at it. Now it's today's Tuesday, December 17th. I have to edit out all the things I said in the video because, whatever they did there. But Kendrick Perkins, the guy in the middle, said that Kyrie Irving is just stubborn. But, this was, if you guys remember the circumstances, Kyrie Irving didn't want to take the bloop, and he couldn't play home games. And then there was just this controversy. And their solution to this was get rid of somebody, right? Get rid of him because he was a problem, because he was not a team player and wouldn't take the bloop. And, the team was not going to win the championship. There's going to be a lot of injuries and, all these things that were going to end up happening later on. And so he eventually got traded to the Dallas Mavericks, where he's thrived. And he's kind of a fan favorite, I think, a lot because he stood up for what he believed. And, it's a different place in Dallas than New York. But for him to say get rid of Kyrie Irving was, and then he got into it with Kyrie Irving's dad. Let me show you the other clip here. Neffer.
He got to go. He's just a problem.
He's just a problem.
Just a problem.
He's just a problem.
I want to put everything in its proper perspective, Keisha, myself included. Maybe not you, Key, but a lot of us that had reservations about taking the vaccine.
Understood.
But we took it.
Yes.
That was his choice. And I've said before, I don't care about if people took it or not. Like, everyone had their choice. Like, this is about putting something in your body and trusting the system or whatever, right? This is Kyrie Irving's choice and his choice. And his choice was to take it. But Kyrie Irving didn't want to take it, and that was his complete choice. And, time has smiled at Kyrie Irving, right? Like we all know. But then he says this here. I don't agree with his choice, but I support his right to choose. No, get rid of him. He's a problem, right? I chose it. You chose it.
Not just because of us, but because of the people that we were going to be around. And more importantly, the obligations that we had. I don't get vaccinated. I can't do first take. I don't get.
So Stephen A. Smith was making $8 million a year. He just got a much bigger contract, I think. Maybe in the $100 million. He's branched out now to do these social media podcasts things, right? And I didn't know this at the time when I was covering this, they're making this video, back in October 2021. And I just said, this was about his money. Like he worked for ESPN Disney, and it was mandatory. So he's admitting this here.
If I don't do first take, I'm leaving everybody stranded. Not to mention compromise.
Okay, so he's saying he's doing it for his coworkers, but then he says it's about the $8 million.
Everybody stranded. Not to mention compromise my own bankroll and bottom line, which I was not going to do. Let me be very, very clear about that.
Okay, so it's clear about the money, right? The money was that, like, he had to do this. He looked at his options, and he was forced to do this. He felt he was forced to do this. And Kyrie Irving said, no, I'm not going to do this. Kyrie Irving lost $17 million initially, but it was, when it was all said and done, and then the fines he got for posting that thing on Twitter, it was, maybe he lost $80 million or something. Like Kyrie Irving stood up for something, and his contract with Dallas Mavericks was smaller than it would have been. He should have been a max player, and then all the things that happened afterwards. And so, this is his thing.
The hypocrisy is off the charts, and it is sickening.
Okay, I ain't apologize for that to a damn soul, all right?
So he, at some point, changed his story. He said it was just about Kyrie Irving and the team. He didn't care whether Kyrie even took the thing or not. But that's not what he said initially, right? And he was comparing himself to, that he was supporting the people at First Take. That if he doesn't take this thing, then all these people that work there, all the staff, but they would just replace him with somebody else. The show would go on, right? And so he was saying he had teammates there. He had people he worked with, people that, he was the star of that show, and he had to do what ESPN was demanding of him. It was just like Kyrie Irving was being selfish. But the criticism got so bad that Kyrie Irving's dad got involved. And they were going at it, him and his dad. And Kyrie Irving came up and approached him at a game and said, you've been talking a lot of shit about me. I just want to see if you still kind of keeping that same energy. Because Stephen A. Smith said this thing. And was telling the story. And Stephen A. Smith said, I wouldn't back down, this kind of bullshit, right? But then Kyrie Irving said, it's not even about me now. And then Stephen A. Smith said he kind of was apologizing to Kyrie Irving because he said he made it about, because Kyrie Irving saying it wasn't about me now, it was about him and his dad, like Stephen A. Smith and Kyrie Irving's dad. And Stephen A. Smith was criticizing Kyrie Irving because of his dad and being stubborn and being a piece of shit. And this, involved the other things that happened with Kyrie Irving and what he posted on Twitter. And they jumped on him, and he was kind of a hero. I mean, he was a hero. He stood up for something he believed in. And even if he was wrong, and it turns out he wasn't wrong, right, about all this stuff. And so Kyrie Irving was a hero. And Stephen A. Smith demonized him and then kind of had to apologize, but not in a real way. Only from the standpoint that he got unprofessional because it became a personal battle between Kyrie Irving's dad and Stephen A. Smith. And so, now Stephen A. Smith sees the benefit of being sort of doing this stuff where you're doing a podcast. And he's trying to talk truth to power in the Democratic Party and say controversial things. But when it came down to it, he was a piece of shit, right? Like, this was his big moment. And he could have influenced the people in his community, the people that follow him. And he could have stood up at least for Kyrie Irving's courage, right, for standing up for something he believed. But he failed completely. And so that was his big moment, and he came up small. The same way he criticizes athletes for, failing when they had their big moment. He failed when he could have made a difference and made it, been bigger than the contract, the money he was making, and bigger than his, his platform. But he just, he failed. And so, like, he's just a piece of shit trying to have a podcast, like now, or like all this other stuff that people have, right? And the kind of criticism he drops on athletes on a daily basis. And he's he's a grown-ass man. Like, these are young 20-year-old kids. And, like, he's wrecked guys' lives. Like, there's an ex-basketball player named Kwame Brown who was the number one pick by the Washington Wizards when Michael Jordan took over their franchise. And the guy was a bust. He never really mounted anything. And Stephen A. Smith was always slamming the guy. And that guy now has a podcast where he's just slamming. He's just all over Stephen A. Smith, for the kind of treatment he got as an 18-year-old kid and, the way Stephen A. Smith just demonizes people. And so for all the things that Stephen A. Smith says about these athletes, and he's kind of a tool, when he could have stood up for something, that he had reservations about, doubts about himself, and didn't, all right, that sucks, but, all right, he had his money to make and these things. But then he went after Kyrie Irving, someone who did stood up, someone who was big in that moment, right? Who was, beyond his own his money and his position. I mean, he could have been out of the NBA altogether. Like Kyrie Irving was kind of straddling that line, and he was getting so demonized. And Stephen A. Smith and these clowns went after him. And, it's one thing to come up small for yourself, but then criticizing somebody who did what you couldn't do, right? And so now he wants to have a podcast, and, so everything with him, he'd be taken with a grain of salt, because like he's jumping sort of on the Trump bandwagon to some extent. You're flirting with it just to, create more buzz and more attention for himself. But like when he could have been something more than that, he came up small. Okay, so I ate breakfast and I went through the various news channels and sports channels, and I ended up here on Fox right before I finished eating. And this is what this guy said here about Iran.
And not neutralize Iran. I think we will come for them once and for all and end what they've been doing in the Middle East for 44 years.
General Kane on a Monday morning with that news. Thank you so much.
So the guy's name is Cain. Cain was not such a good guy in the Bible. And he's an asshole, this guy. And let me explain why. Trump has a major Israel problem and a major Iran problem. And so if you think Trump is going to make America great again, and he's a good guy, then he is way over the line on two huge issues, one with Iran and one with Israel. So first of all, let's cover the Iran thing, which I covered yesterday a little bit. But there's this Operation Ajax where what became British Petroleum was built an oil industry in Iran. And they had a democratically elected, moderate, good guy named Mossadegh, who was a leader of Iran. Like, he didn't dress in these, he wasn't a religious fanatic, and it was a modern country that was doing modern business. I mean, it was a progressive country. This guy was, moderate to liberal for his country. It was a very popular leader, and Iran was going in the right direction. But he said to British Petroleum, you're taking too much money. You're only giving us 20% for oil that's in our country, and you're taking 80% of the profit. Let's split it 50-50. And British Petroleum said, fuck you. So he kicked them out of the country. And so the British Petroleum went crying to the CIA. Again, this is a British company. And the CIA went about getting rid of this guy. And this is the part of America that all you guys who say America's the greatest country and claim to be this and that, whatever, we're an evil fucking empire. Because we had no right to go into Iran and fuck the country over. And we got rid of Mossadegh. This is the CIA kills countries, right? This whole kind of thing, right? Economic hitman by that guy, John Perkins, is that America goes and destabilizes countries all the time for our benefit. And it hurts them and the people, destroys the people. Kids starve, right? We did economic sanctions against Iraq. 500,000 people starved. And then Madeleine Albright, Clinton's Secretary of State, said, it was the right thing to do, right? If 500,000 kids starving. I've showed you that clip many a time. We do shit like that all the time, and it hurts people. And it keeps America afloat because evil shit, right? We need evil. When you have a debt-based economic system, you have to manipulate the system in evil ways, and that's what America's done, time and time again. So they put in this guy, Shah of Iran, who was a bloodthirsty dictator who lived high on the hog, and America loved him. And, the Iranians didn't. And he was torturing people, killing people, the same way they're whining about this guy in Syria now, right? Assad. Or the Shah of Iran was way worse. But he was an American guy. He was a Western guy that he was put in there. And the Iranian people rejected him, and there was such outrage towards him. It went the other direction, and now they got that very... this religious totalitarian dictatorship there. And that's all because of America fucking the country over. It was a progressive, democratically elected leader who was a good leader, and they got rid of him because of corporate interests. And these are the kind of things our country does. This is deep state shit, and the Republicans were all over this, right? This wasn't liberal. It wasn't Democrats. It wasn't once, the side that you're against now, right? And so people in America don't want to hear about this shit. When they hear about it, they get upset, and they go, why are you doing this? And if they were given an honest answer, it would be, shut the fuck up, or you guys will all be in massive bread lines and, picking out of garbage cans trying to fucking get food. Okay, then just don't tell me about it, right? Okay, I don't want to know about that, right? This is your lifestyle that we're saving. That's what the CIA and the so-called deep state would say to you if you whined about it to them. And they had an honest dialogue. Just shut the fuck up, or you'll be living in a post-apocalyptic situation. The system will collapse if we don't continue doing this evil. Because it takes evil to keep an evil system going. And that's what we have, is an evil system. So we want to look at the things that we enjoy, the good parts of America, and ignore what it takes to, the suffering of other people and other species and planet to make our system keep on going the way it's going. And that's the sad part, because when we look at the truth, it's kind of depressing, and we feel like pieces of shit for contributing to and being dependent on a system that is so ass backwards and demonic and bad for people. And so this clown who comes in and says you got to get rid of Iran. Well, we made Iran. We created this shitstorm, this difficult problem, by our handling of Iran in the first place. And now we want to do regime change again, or whatever the fuck we want to do. And that's also going to lead to World War III. And it's also about Israel's influence. And the problem with Israel is there's a couple ones. Now, there's people in the truth community that blame Jewish people and Israel for everything. And I'm not one of those people, right? Again, I say that we're all responsible in one way or another. But Israel looks like it had a big hand in the event, a big event in 2001. If you find the videos about the 5 dancing Israelis, I don't know how many of these videos still exist, but there were guys who were filming the event who were seen jumping up and down, celebrating as the buildings came down. And then they were arrested. One of the guys had like $7,000 in his sock. And they said, don't arrest us. We're the good guys. It's the Palestinian people that did this. They were saying it was the Palestinian people because that's what they were probably told it was about. And they look like there's a lot of other evidence that Israel was involved in that big event, attacking America. But Israel is somebody we give a ton of money to, and we're sort of almost like a welfare state. And there's all this influence. There's people with dual citizenship that are a part of all these administrations. I mean, there's so much evidence about Israel's sort of parasitic relationship to the United States. And, it's not a good relationship, and Israel's as evil as anybody else, if not, in some cases, more, in terms of what they're doing. There's a lot of evil there in the Middle East, and there's not a lot of good guys, and Israel isn't certainly good guys. But Trump and his people, they want to get rid of Iran and give Israel a blank check, which is a fucked up thing to do. And anybody who's a truther knows that that's wrong on every level. Trump's really off and completely wrong about this one. But he's said it all along. And he's, Jared Kushner's a part of this. And he's just always been a supporter of Israel in this way in no uncertain terms. And what they're doing to the Palestinian people is not only like a human crime, but it's like a spiritual crime. And I mean, it's a genocide. The same things that they're complaining about happened to them, they're now doing to the Palestinian people. Is ethnic cleansing, right? And so, Trump can't be a hero when he's backing these people. And this guy, this clown Kane, who came on Fox News and said, "Oh, we got to get rid of Iran." The neocons have had a hard-on for Iran for a long time, and this is going to end up in World War III. The Russia had mild interest in Syria, but has bigger interest in Iran, and this is, there's already this World War III is in the works. It's already, it's already a predestined thing. And this is what's going to cause it, these types of things. And this guy pushing for this. And it's just completely a lie. It's, for him to say that Iran's a problem, we broke it, we bought it, right? We broke Iran, we turned it into what it is now. And we have to take responsibility for that, not come in and, hurt these people that live there, beautiful people. I know some of them do my meditation. And they're not even angry and bitter towards America, but they know how America, they don't love their government. They know their government sucks, right? and they know we caused it, right? You know, if you go look at that movie, Argo, right? You know, this movie with Ben Affleck, excellent movie, and it addresses some of these things even in a movie. Everyone knows this happened. America fucked over this country, destroyed a democratic elected leader for personal, you know, for gains for some foreign company, oil company of all things, right? And now we're dealing with the consequences. The world is in that part of the world, and America fucked it. Like the Iranian people didn't screw it up. The American government and the CIA and these, you know, these war-hungry pieces of shit like this clown Kane, they fucked it up, right? And so, like, it's just being honest. If you're honest about, you know, the dark side of America, this is the dark side of America. Okay, so this is something posted on Twitter. I don't know if it's valid or not. My wife sent it to me. It's somebody saying that Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was shut down because of too much drone activity, right?
Patterson Tower, Med-Flight 8, 1,900 feet, about 7 miles southwest of the field, like transition your Delta northeastbound.
Med-Flight 8 Patterson Tower, use extreme caution for heavy UAS movement on the base. Security forces is handling the situation. Suggest at or above 1,700 AGL.
That we will maintain 2,000 and on our transition for Med-Flight 8.
And I gotta keep the lights down so that security forces can see.
Roger that, no problem.
Position approved, sir.
Approved, Med-Flight 8.
Med-Flight 8 Tower.
Ahead for Med-Flight 8.
Hey, sir, you're still approved through our Class Delta. After you leave, Columbus is going to sterilize the Class Delta as of 0330 Zulu. Patterson Class Delta is closed after your transition.
I'm sorry about that. You got stepped on by other traffic. Can you say again?
Yes, sir. Your transition is still approved. However, Patterson Class Delta is sterilized as of 0330 Zulu for heavy unknown UAS activity. Security forces is handling it, and Columbus is going to sterilize the airspace after you leave the Delta.
Roger that. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess this guy was having trouble landing there, or they were saying, you know, be careful, you're going to come down. And there's just like I don't know how many drones he said. I think he said some thousands. I'm not sure what that referenced to. But there was so many drones in the sky above Wright-Patterson Air Force Base that they had to close it down. And this was the last plane they were going to allow landing, and they were going to have to get rid of all the drones.
All aircraft use extreme caution. Patterson Class Delta is now closed for heavy UAS activity.
UAF is UFO, so they're I don't know when this audio came from, but if you're closing down Air Force bases because the drones are surrounding you or hovering over you, and they're not military drones, and you're having to get rid of them, this is an unplanned type situation, then that's completely fucked, right? I mean, just, you know, like things are going south on this thing quickly. So here's the confirmation. Drone sightings lead to airspace shutdown at Ohio military base. Arrests here, we'll go to see that whole thing. Drone Air Force blockage for multiple hours as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is closed. All these things, right? Here's the AP story. Arrest near Boston Airport. So they had to arrest people near Boston, close down an Air Force base. So all that bullshit that they were saying about how that this thing is over is just bullshit, right? Like, you know, that these are manned aircraft and there's nothing to worry about. There's no security issues. It's out of control. This is like you're being infested by locusts. There's so many drones, they can't do anything about it. And so if it's them, they need to say something at this point. The local politicians and senators are going nuts. Nobody's giving them any answers. And, you know, there's... Okay, so, here.
These are all drones in the sky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
They're passing each other. I mean, how do they not know what's going on?
Stop cursing.
Well, number one, I'm going to call it total that no one knows what these are. but they can't identify what nightly drones are and where they're coming from. I think that is absolutely disgusting.
It's disgusting. These drones are so disgusting. They're pooping everywhere.
The American people
She got pooped on the other day she got drone pooped.
like this.
I met with a law enforcement person, a number of them, who have had live sightings. One of them suggested that 50 came from the ocean over the mainland, into the mainland. Is there a ship out there? Who knows? Go and find out. DOD has been AWOL.
I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago.
Okay, so we saw these various clips. This is the Young Turks. I don't know what their position on this is and don't care. More videos here, though.
Joining me now, Michael B., an experienced drone
Michael B.
pilot and CEO of Terror Talk. Michael B.
Terror Talk.
Welcome to you. And thankfully, you sent us
Hey,
some
Alex.
video from one of your spotters in Hillsborough, New Jersey.
Boom.
And we're going to pull this up here and show our viewers there's a big red dot. There you see it, kind of dead center of the screen.
There it is. Look at that dot.
What do you think that is? What do you think people are seeing in the skies? And why only at night?
At this point, I think that someone knows what they are. So what we're doing
Somebody does. The person flying them, at least, and they're not talking.
is we're going to go up and watch you. You're watching us, or you're doing whatever. So we're up there watching. We're following. We're trying to get in the air. What they could be, I have no idea.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, drone expert. Why'd you invite this guy? Should have screened him.
Okay. We have more video that you sent us of you, in fact, trying to launch a drone, and it was right near an airport. So tell us what happened there and why it's so noteworthy.
Okay, so we got reports last night that there was a lot of drone activity in the East Hanover area, which backs up to Morristown Airport and all that vicinity. So we head out there. We set up in a parking lot about a quarter mile away from the airport, and I'm trying to get flight clearance to take the drone up and see what this other drone is, and I cannot. Restricted. I tried to bypass it. At one point, it even asked for my phone number, and I said, no, I think we're good at this point.
Okay, now hang on. When you say looking for flight clearance, how does that work? I mean, are you literally talking with a control tower, or what are you doing?
So there's an app that you use to connect to the drone. When it's time, when you want to fly, you press a button, and what it does is it looks for flight clearance or restrictions. And what happened was there was a restriction in that area, and I couldn't get up, but there were drones in the air that weren't following the restriction. Now, we verify everything above us with flight radar, so we can tell if it's an airplane or if it's not. None of the things that we go after are on flight radar.
Okay, so
This is the thing. What he's saying here is that as an amateur drone person or professional drone person, that there is limitations put on your app, and either these people aren't using the app and they're American drone people, or these are coming from some, people who are outside they're not having to use this app and go through these restrictions, which means it's either the U.S. government or foreign government. These aren't just a bunch of practical jokers. It's happening all over the country. It isn't like there's some big drone rebellion going on, and Americans are flying drones everywhere to make a story. This is an individual operators. We know that. Let's rule that out. That's just a silly, idea. That just can't be. And he's confirming this, that they would have to find a way to bypass this app and fly in restricted areas. And so that would be, which obviously they would have to do anyway. But, there's an app for this. So it's already something.
what we're looking at, this device notwithstanding, this control for your drone, if drones are getting into areas without clearance by the FAA, is it possible they figured out some kind of a technology to keep their drones from being jammed and or losing power?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if you're aware, last week or so, 2 weeks when this started, I tried to take my drone over Picatinny Arsenal to follow a drone that was just hovering over there. And as I got closer, my drone lost power, spun out, and the battery died, and it went down. But the other drone remained sitting in the air unaffected.
Why? What do you think?
No.
Why?
Secrets that the government don't want us to know, and they're playing stupid. Either that or aliens.
Oh, come on. Not the latter. Okay.
Okay, so I want to talk about the aliens briefly because my wife was reading something. I guess she said that some guy was out there saying, the aliens are coming down and they're trying to prevent nuclear war. But my understanding from the Whispers of the Brighter World messages, which I'll be reading, close to New Year's Day or Eve or whatever it is, the ones that are prophecies, that nuclear war is like essential to the destruction of the system and a necessary aspect to bring down this demonic system, right? Which, isn't good for anyone to hear. Of course, the red balls of fire that I was talking about that girl's, was saying to her mom or whatever. There's whatever it is. But there is going to be an alien invasion, according to these messages, after we fuck up the earth pretty good and people are desperate. Because if aliens came down right now, and the aliens used to be more present, like everyone saw them in the sky, like all these primitive peoples have artwork all over the world because they saw these, various spaceships and things. But, in the recent years, the people who control the system are holding the earth as hostage. Like they'll blow up the earth if the aliens, whatever it is. Like if there's any kind of intervention, or they'll turn the people against the aliens. No one would believe it. The people who believe in the Bible will call them demons, and there'll just be so much skepticism, and it'll be like this whole, these guys are trying to destroy us. I mean, there'll be all these narratives. So anything you hear about aliens from the official government is always going to be bullshit, because they would have told you the truth from the beginning. I mean, when they decided to lie about alien activity, they would have come out and, told you the truth in the beginning if there was, that kind of disclosure going to happen, right? And so the only reason they're going to withhold that is they're going to use it for their agenda. Like anything they say here has an agenda with it, right? The consistent lying and deception of the people that you're supposed to protect and supposed to govern. And some of it's justified, like I said, because people can't handle stuff. Some of it's just because there's all these lies, and once you start to lie, once you start to lie this bad, then you're just caught. You can't ever just come out and come clean, because then it would just be all these things you'd have to explain. Okay, this is all the things we lied about, and it'd be overwhelming. Like people would be like, well, pretty much everything, right? Like from your religious teachings to your, basic historical teachings to Darwin and all these other things that they've lied about. It's all lies, right? So like it would be too much, right? Pretty much everything you think of as reality, have been told is a reality since you were a kid, is bullshit in one way or another. But this bimbo, like her saying, "Oh, come on," like aliens are as good an explanation as anything else, right?
Why? What do you think?
Yep. Secrets that the government don't want us to know, and they're playing stupid. Either that or aliens.
Oh, come on. Not the latter. Okay, you're smiling. All right. I'm glad. All right.
Because she believed him for a second. You think this random drone expert is going to...
Are there enough restrictions for drones? You're a drone user. Are those restrictions taken seriously by your colleagues, your friends?
You're a drone user? You tell me you're a drone user?
That are drone users as well? Or is more regulation needed? And if it went out there, would it be followed?
I think people are always going to find a way around the regulations. I don't think the average...
Okay, so let's go through these various scenarios, and I'll go to the next thing. Okay, let's say these were just a bunch of drone enthusiasts who were playing like a practical joke or, fucking around. That means that the American government can't control this, right? That the military can't control this, and just local people flying drones can shut down Air Force bases and cause all kinds of havoc. So that would be a serious security breach, and it would also let all the countries know that you can fly your drones over here and we can't do shit about it, right? So that's the first part. So American military is doing some sort of experiment and test, and if they're doing that at this point, it's just so poorly handled. So that seems like that's not likely either, because they would stop doing it just because it's all causing all kinds of havoc, unless they want to scare people as part of a psychological operation. So really, it would almost have to be to scare people and then not tell them what it is, because that's the part of the fear, and then, whatever. So that would be the only way, was the government. Foreign entities, sure, that could be that, some country Iran, China, one of these countries, right? Russia. And then the last thing would be some sort of extraterrestrial technology. And none of these things are good. So they can't tell you if it's any of those things. The government's screwed. And so now they look weak, they look pathetic, they look like they're not transparent, and they're going to come up with some bullshit story that no one's going to believe because they can't tell you the truth. Like, they literally can't tell you the truth. I mean, they could, but it would be bad news on any one of these things. Every one of these things would be bad news. It would be, make the government look horrible in one way or another. Weak on one hand, evil on another hand. I mean, all these different scenarios and narratives. Whatever the truth is, they can't say it. This is about the Air Force Base.
An alarming drone incident that forced one of the U.S.'s most critical Air Force bases to close its airspace for several hours. This happened at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base over the weekend in Ohio. And just in, new air traffic control audio obtained by military news website The War Zone of the moment it happened.
Med Flight 8 Patterson Tower.
So we already heard this, right?
Ohio, now the latest of several states to report drone concerns as...
Okay, so let's just go back to when I first started covering this. Whatever that guy Kirby is, the defense secretary, whatever he does. He came out and said, no real issue here. People are just seeing manned aircraft and they're just over-reporting. It's just a hoax. So that's out. That's done because they've had to close down an Air Force base because of bombardment by drones, right? And now we have sightings. We're going to cover all the way in California and all across the East Coast, the Eastern Seaboard. So there's drones everywhere. And so the second part was this is not a national security threat. We had to close down a critical Air Force base because there are so many drones. And so, like how they got rid of those drones or, where these drones are coming from, it's clearly a threat, right? So the government has been exposed here. And again, unless this is purposeful to distract people or whatever it is, panic people, I mean, there's some kind of thing going just as a psychological operation. Everything else is really bad news, right? Because if some foreign government is flying drones this close to us, then they're getting ready, like we're at war then. This is like World War III shit. We're already at war. That this is already happening, right? Like this is invading our airspace and, the primary area, right, with New York, New Jersey, the whole big event, 9/11 stuff, all these, these states here.
Scrutiny over the federal response is building. This morning, lawmakers are demanding government officials do more and explain more after weeks of suspicious sightings.
I've had briefings, as I've said, that makes me feel confident based on those briefings that there's not an imminent threat to public safety, but it doesn't answer the question, where are all these drones coming from that people are seeing, and why aren't we doing a better job of tracking them?
Well, then why are you talking about there's no security threat if you don't know where the fuck they come and why they're here and who's doing it? Like, so they gave you no information, you limp dick motherfucker, right? What are you talking about, bro? If they were told you where the drones are coming from and why it's not a threat based in information, not just saying it's not a threat, but explain why it isn't and how they know it's not a threat, well, then, that'd be one thing. But they didn't do that. So what are you talking about?
Understanding that it can't be the Wild West of drones out there in Jersey or anywhere else. We got to get to the bottom of this, and people deserve answers.
And ahead, we'll speak to more lawmakers who are concerned. CNN Sunlen Serfati is in Washington. Sunlen, what more?
Her name's Sunlen? The fuck?
Is the administration planning to do? There are a lot of concerns that have turned to frustration and anger.
So if her first name is Sun and her middle name is Lynn, or is that one fucking name?
Frankly.
That's absolutely right, Sarah. Concern is
Sunlen Serafeti.
growing, and pressure certainly is increasing on the administration to be more transparent and clear in how they're handling this and distribute the information that they know. This incident at the Air Force Base over the weekend at Wright-Patterson, right outside Dayton, Ohio, really increasing the alarm. The fact that that airspace was closed for 4 hours. This is, as you noted, a very critical airspace. Air Force.
Okay, there's that. A few other ones to get to here.
Welcome back into Live Now from Fox as we continue to track all of the latest. I want to bring you some breaking news in regards to some of these mysterious drone sightings that we have been seeing across the country. Taking a look here at a tweet from the Boston Police Department, they say this: 2 suspects arrested following hazardous drone operation in Long Island.
Okay, so if these aren't foreign government people, then how many people would be doing this, right? If there's a massive rebellion, like this, some sort of protest by drones, this would be, I mean, if they want to blame it on American people, that would be the best thing for them. Foreign governments flying drones into our airspace and us not doing shit about it is going to cause widespread fucking panic, right? Aliens, widespread panic. The government doing psychological operations, that would just be whatever. That'd be a complete meltdown. And so the only people they can blame is individual drone operators, and this would be all across the country, and certainly densely in the East Coast of these heavy cities, right? These big cities, this heavy urban area. Unless the whole thing's just made up, which is also a possibility.
And more mysterious drone sightings continue to be reported nationwide. Viewers sending in videos to Fox 11 of weird objects seen above Long Beach overnight. Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf hearing from drone experts and a pilot tonight about the mystery.
Growing concerns over drones causing more videos like this to take off.
Okay, so this is in Long Beach, California. So people are starting to see these everywhere. And they seem to be very similar drones in terms of their lighting. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. There's going to be World War III, so whatever. Just fuck it. Let's move on to the next thing here. Okay, so I want to say one other thing about what I was talking about in the beginning, and this ties to all of it, right? Being right is overrated. So, the thing about my life decisions, I feel like I've made all the right life decisions once I started doing the meditation that I'm doing, because I took the system seriously and used it the way that it was prescribed to use, and I started developing my heart as an instrument to make decisions by including God and my soul into the decision-making process and, these things. And I've been pretty good since then. I mean, almost, I think on all the major decisions, 100%. Just being guided by my soul and my heart, doing things that I necessarily didn't want to do in many cases, but doing them anyway, including this YouTube channel when I felt like God was saying to me, oh, you're going to have to cover celebrity videos to make this thing relevant, and all the decisions I've made about it. And then all the things that I've said here because of the system I'm using that includes divinity. Before that, I don't know if I ever made a right decision. I mean, I was just going along. I don't even know if I made decisions. I was just trudging through life, right? But I've been, fairly spot on because of the system I'm using. And when you include God, then, if you're asking God for permission, if you're asking God for guidance, if you're including, the etheric part of your essence, your soul, in your decision making, and in terms of your, just going through life on a daily basis, then you're going to get more accurate information than following whatever the bullshit is that they're doing out there. But I got a lot of heat for my decisions. My family and I living on a farm, I was doing this meditation. I'm doing the Sajmarg meditation. And there's predictions about the system collapsing as part of a divine plan because it's necessary for the system collapse. And then there's these whispers of the brighter world messages that got more specific. And like I said, I'm going to read these in the 1st of January. And my family and I started to follow these teachings and started to homestead and prepare for what they said was going to happen. Now, if you believe in something and you're given inside information, it's a good idea to act on it, right? I was just talking about this with my wife because she was saying, well, it sounds almost kind of hopeless. And I'm like, well, if it's hopeless, it's hopeless. But if you have inside information, you should go and do what you can do to prepare for something, because she was talking about the red ball thing with the kid. And I said, well, you have to just keep on going. And, at least you're moving in the right direction, giving the information, right? Because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. But if you were forewarned and you didn't do anything, then what's the sense in having this information, right? And there have been a lot of times where people have come back to my channel and said, you said something that pissed me off, and now I realize you were 100% right. Like I was just, ahead of the time for them, and they couldn't hear what I was saying, but then realized, oh my God, that guy was right. People have come back, oh, remember that guy, he said this, and now I'm finding out he's right, and they come back to my channel. I forgot all about it. And so, with all these people, I mean, these people who do my meditative practice, they failed completely on this, and then they failed completely on this dodgy thing, right? Then dodgy was somebody who's obviously a piece of shit, and they can't deal with the fact that he's taken the system and collapsed it. And even if they know I'm right a little bit, they don't reach out to me or don't connect with me. There's people that show back up on my channel, and you'll have this experience with people, and they knew you were right all along, but still they think they know more than you. Like they think, oh, you did it too early, right? In fact, Dodgy said that to somebody about me and my family. We did it too early, and I'm like, there's no doing it too early. If anything, it's too late, because I don't feel prepared. As much as I've done to prepare myself internally for what's about to happen, and then in terms of lifestyle, in terms of any kind of skills I've gained and farming and all the things that I know, prepping, whatever I know and can do, all the things that I'm capable of doing now that I couldn't do before. I'm no way near ready, and I'm looking forward to this thing. It might be great, but I can't say for sure it will be, and that I'll be able to adjust or just be given my age and these other things, right? But either way, when people realize you were right all along, they still are dicks about it, right? They're not like cool about it. They're not like, oh my God, let me listen to you now. They usually come back and try to tell you what's up, even though you were here, where they finally reached. You're ahead of the time. You're years ahead of like the majority of people, and years ahead of these people. And these were people who didn't listen to their own beliefs and things that were coming from a system that they claim they trust, in terms of the spiritual stuff. And then in the truth community, you're denying everything that you're seeing. All you're seeing is how bad people are and how fucked up we are and all the bad things we're doing. And then you're still believing that the system is worth saving, and it can and will be saved. And you follow some guy like Trump who's a complete asshole, whatever, right? But in all that, like in the beginning, being right meant something to me. Having some confirmation and validation that I was right. Because there was like a little bit of competitiveness, being on Noah's Ark and watching all these motherfuckers drown. Of course, isn't a great thing, but at least you feel like, hey, I was right. I listened to God, and I did what I was supposed to do. But after a while, being right doesn't really mean shit. Like it's like getting a thumbs up or there's no validation in it, right? Because if you're living the right way, you should be right about everything. If you're living in the way where you're following your soul, there's no sense of ever being wrong. If you're doing what God wants you to do or your soul wants you to do, which isn't that hard, it takes effort on your part, on my part, or anybody's part. But the effort is just resisting your ego's desire to do the wrong thing, right? Which is what dominates the world right now. And so it's not really that great of a thing. Being right doesn't, oh, great, I was right. Now I can apply something to these radiation burns. I can apply my validation to these radiation burns or radiation sickness I'm getting, or, like when you're having to shoot your neighbors or whatever, At least I was right. Look, we got to shoot these zombies. I was right all along. Look, look at the zombies trying to steal our food, or whatever it is, right? And so, like, it doesn't matter. Being right isn't all that big a deal, but it's certainly a lot better than being wrong. Like, being wrong is just horrible in this situation. That if you had you had heard about these things, because most people have heard something, and most people can see and feel there's warnings. This shit doesn't happen without warnings. Even animals get warnings about hurricanes and things and earthquakes, and they flee an area. They get a sense of things. So this is based on intuition. People have been warned over and over in their dreams and in their, whatever's going on in their life and all this stuff. And, they know the government lies. Like, they're having these conversations, and the media is just confirming, and the lower level politicians are just confirming the government's withholding information. And it's just a known thing. It's in every fucking movie about this thing, all the way back to like E.T. and shit like that. They always tell you the same story. They always lie about what's happening. They always, deceive the American public. And it's just what governments do and what the media does and all this stuff. And then it comes out and they admit to it, but they still blame you somehow. Like you're the person who called it out and you're the person who pointed out, or you're the group, the truth community that was right all along. And then, the real truthers, I mean, not the, massive amount of dopes that are now in the truth community, but the people who are sincere and doing, just a good solid job of assessing what's going on. And you're right all along, and they're still being dicks to you like it's like still your fault. And like, well, you should have been like the rest of us, or whatever it is. Because wherever you are in the truth community, you feel like the people who aren't where you are sheeple and complete assholes and morons, right? And asleep and just, despicable. And the people who are like way more radical about it are batshit crazy, right? Which is in some cases the case. But wherever you are is the perfect spot. You're just there. You're getting it. Like the other people, they're either sheeple or they're nuts. But you're right. You're at that sweet spot, right? That's what every person believes. People just suck. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's nothing here. This isn't about. There's no opinions or beliefs that mean anything. It's about your willingness to adjust and deal with a difficult situation, and deal with it to the best of your ability, and make the most of the opportunity that inevitably comes from such things, which, it's essentially about spirituality more than anything else, and then preparing and adjusting yourself and changing the way that you live your life because you have no choice. And so that's coming down the pipe. People can listen or not. I'm not giving warnings or anything or advising anybody to do anything because, people are going to choose to do this based on their abilities, and most people don't have the ability to. Even if they feel like they're being warned, they feel like they're stuck in quicksand and they're just watching with a little bit more consciousness than the average slug. The average slug. You're just a little bit more awake than the average slug, but you're still a slug. And so, I mean, it's just that this is what's going on now, and it doesn't, being right or any of these, it just doesn't matter. Like your beliefs, all these things. It's just, the thing is that we all have to deal with something difficult, and you might as well make the most of it because there's something to be gained here. But anyways, let's get into the other things. Okay, before we get to the next thing, you can't see I took a picture of this, and it says, not all heroes wear capes. And then this guy goes in, and the guy is an overweight guy who pats him down. So I thought the joke was that this guy at TSA was a hero. But what it says on the guy's T-shirt, I couldn't read it or didn't read it. And one of my viewers pointed out, it's not gay if it's the TSA, and it shows a TSA guy grabbing your crotch. And so he wore this T-shirt to the airport, and then, he maybe wanted to go through and get patted down because it's obvious that he has somebody filming this, which is whatever. So, so I guess that's the hero reference. Either way, it's still kind of funny, but this is kind of disturbing because if you wear a T-shirt like that, you're getting pat down. Anyways, let's go to the other thing here. So this is an advisor to Trump called Alan Brucewitz, and this happened to him.
Oh no, I'm forgetting my words. But share impeachment.
Boom. See ya. Started slurring his speech. This is what I used to call Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. This would be covered on my other channel. The one where the Kyrie Irving video was. So I don't know when this happened. We can look for it here. Here it is. Trump advisor Alex Brucewitz, 27-year-old strategist for Donald Trump, collapses on stage. I think it was at some sort of New York. It's a New York Young Republican gala. He collapsed at a gala. So, these guys, these young Republicans, and their galas, and they're collapsing. All right, so let's go to the next thing here. Okay, this is one of my viewers sent me this. This is United Health, Jesse Wells, is a singer. It's kind of in the Bob Dylan style song about the United Health stuff. It includes a little bit of a kind of some jokes about the CEO shooter and all of it. And it's informative. Usually when somebody sends me something like this, I'm like, it's kind of clever, but whatever. But this was one of the better ones. I listened to the whole thing. And so it's well worth watching. It's got 140,000 views. Should have more than that. It should have millions of views. Based in, it just goes through the various CEO stuff. And it's a well-written song. Like I said, like a folk song. And it's a well-done thing. Okay, so we're going past 2 hours here. So let's just wrap this one up here. And I'll continue on tomorrow or the next day or today, with my next video. Whatever it is. I think I want to try to get that first episode out on the Rumble video about my stuff I've learned about the post-COVID healthcare stuff. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely point for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.